First off, I just want to say how keen I am to actually make this video. This is going to be one of the most impactful videos I'll probably ever make. Why am I so excited? Exactly because I know how much of an impact this alone has had on my life. What is this, you may ask? Well, this is a whiteboard that I filled in 30 points on the sort of person that I want to be in the future. There was no gauge on when, why, how, none of that, right? It was just simply things that I wanted to achieve, things that I wanted to attain, the sort of traits that I wanted to pursue, right? And these are really personal points, by the way. Like, this isn't something that I ever thought I would actually show. I wrote this down when I was like 20. So it's just been sitting in my room for like 2 to 3 years. And every day I would have this up above my bed and I would subconsciously comprehend it and read it and chip away at it. Not really sitting down properly and actually like making something out of it, but just like letting it instill. And as time went on, over the couple of years that I would see it, I'd read over it every now and then. Every few months I'd read over it and I'd be like, I'm kind of absorbing this, you know? I'm actually kind of working in the exact direction that this is trying to take me, which was my past self trying to speak to my future self. And it kind of worked, to be honest. Not fully, because I didn't have actual plan in place and stuff, but that's what we're going to fix up today. So we've got this chapter. I know you probably can't see this, so I'm going to actually have a photo zoomed in so you can read it, and then you can take a screenshot if you want. But this isn't really what we're trying to follow right now. I mean, this is direction, but it's not specifics. And that's what I want to kind of go over today and actually create a system in place that I think is going to help me push closer towards not what I want, but who I want to be. Because if we can figure out the sort of person that's naturally going to just attain these sort of things through the mindset, these things are just going to come. And that's my goal for this video, is to actually make something in front of you guys, with you guys, and see how it turns out. Let's get into it. Firstly, capture this moment because this is a big deal. This has been in my room for a massive chapter of my life of being a young man, but it's time to grow. You can tell because this stuff is not coming off easy. This is whiteboard marker, dude. Like, this should really just be coming off, but it ain't. Ooh, my cheese and rice. Let's put up a fight, this thing, man. That'll do. Whew. We've completely mangled this thing. So let's start fresh. What is the improvement from what I just had to now? Firstly, we actually have actionable steps. We're going to have like a funnel from the person that we want to be and trickle it down into the present person that we are right now. Once we have those actionable steps, it's going to be a lot more clear on how to attain them. It's actually going to minimize a lot of the issues that I've been having recently. Like, I'm quite ADHD. Like, my attention span, I drift off. I'm overthink a lot. I drift off. I'll be starting on this thing and then I'm like, oh, which one? And it actually just ends up slowing me down, which we kind of went over one of the previous videos of perfection is procrastination. So that's been one of the main issues for me, is just like constantly trying to perfect something. And I thought, you know what, if I actually build like a structure and routine and system that aligns my routine with my system and have structure, I don't have to overthink. Like, I can literally have a preset decision made. What I come to found, right, was that a lot of successful people spend their most conscious time planning these things out so that when they are unconscious, when they are on autopilot, they're not having to like tire themselves out with trying to come up with, okay, what am I going to do today? It's already decided for them. They can go autopilot. They can get to their goal quicker without taxing themselves mentally and physically, thinking, okay, well, what is it for today? What is it for tomorrow? even like in just like weekly blocks. Like we're not trying to do that. We're trying to build a system right now that's going to be like built for like a year. So really looking forward to this. Just before we actually get the ball rolling with starting to create this system, I thought it would be important to just quickly make a few disclaimers. The first one being, we're not trying to get this completely perfect, okay? Because as we've spoken about in a previous video, we don't actually know how well this system is going to be until we put it into practice. So we've got to consider the fact that this is probably going to get refined as real life tests this. Second one, this system is not going to have any substance unless it gets put into practice, which means that we should be trying to aim for something that's actually realistic, something that we can make an impact on tomorrow or today. You know what I mean? Like, these are mainly going to be things where it's a perspective shift. It's not necessarily like, you know, we're going to start training 7 days a week, because that's possible, but could be overwhelming and not sustainable. So that's another thing that I'm just going to mention as well. Third thing is that I just want to mention that I am no expert with doing this sort of stuff, with creating systems. This isn't my forte, but I thought I'm going to give it a red hot crack, and I've come to realize that this stuff is actually pretty helpful with what I've thought of so far. So I'm hoping that there's some people that are in the same day-to-day issue that I've been in for years, where you get caught up with life, you don't take a breather, you think that you're busy and busy and busy, but you're just drifting and spending all this time stressing over not ever getting things you want done, but still putting the same amount of energy in. So this whole thing is basically to just help leverage your decision making so that when you don't need to think, you know that it's going towards your highest conscious self. So I hope that makes sense. So anyway, that's a quick little rundown. Let's get into it. So there's a book that I have read in the past when I was younger called Atomic Habits. This book is pretty well known. It's one of the most helpful books I've ever read in my life. And one of the diagrams in that book really helped me shift my perspective on how important identity is. I'll just quickly draw up a diagram, right? So we have 3 layers. Okay? Identity being the core. Next one being processes. And then third, outcomes. I'll actually have the image up here of what the book actually has, because I think it's important. The point of showing this diagram is that we usually attach our identity to our outcomes first, because it's the surface level thing. It's the thing that we see every single day, right? Basically, it's the evidence of our identity. This could be, you know, I'm fit, I'm lazy, I'm, you know, all these different things. Just for an example. So that is usually the first thing that we attach our identity to. Then you've got process. Process is basically the system, like what we're trying to build right now. This is basically like, you know, how we attach our habits together. Like, okay, how do you start the day, you know? Most people, if they are lazy, it would be like, you know, I get up, wake up, lay down for a little bit longer. I usually like put the snooze alarm on, you know, and then once I'm actually bothered to get up, I'll jump on my phone for a bit, let the blue light in. That way I can wake up a little bit more, and then I'll go in, I'll have a shower, a hot shower, so then I can, you know, and the day kind of drags. And that is going to always, these go hand in hand. All 3 of these go in hand in hand, right? And then when all these things happen, then you attach it with your identity. So now I'm lazy, I'm tired, I procrastinate, I'm this, I'm that. The whole point of making this system is to reverse this. So instead, we're gonna create our identity first. Then we're gonna use our process in align with the identity. And then 3, we're going to make sure that we're actually attaching the actions to the process. And that way, the evidence speaks for itself, and then the new identity is formed. So that's why it's so important to actually have a system in place that's attainable at the start, because what we want to do is accumulate these outcomes to then prove that our new identity is worth. Like each action that we do in our outcomes is going to be a vote internally for our identity actually stick around and stay relevant. And that's why it's actually so important to have a system that we know is actually going to be attainable at first, because it's all about momentum and accumulation. The more actions that we know we can achieve that are aligned with the new identity, the more votes that we can give. And then this ends up diluting, all these actions start diluting out the old identity. And then it's like a vote system, you know? That evidence builds up more and more and more. And then, you know, we adjust, refine, make things easier and easier. We'll make things better and better and better. And then this gets more votes and votes and votes. And then we actually end up just adopting it fully. So that's kind of the intention with today. So let's write down what the actual stages are going to be that are going to get us from identity back down to who we are right now. First one is identity. Okay. Then priorities. Next is standards. Then actions. Then last of all, feedback. So that's the 5 pillars, right? This is what we're going to break down. So the identity is who I am. Priorities is where do I focus? Standards is what I follow. Actions is how I execute them. And feedback is also how do I improve it? So let's just draw like a little chart here. Okay, so now we got our little bit of symbols. If you want to screenshot this. So this is what we are going to go through step by step. As you might notice, all of this helps each other, okay? So you got identity, which helps all of these. Priorities helps the identity, making sure that the intentions are aligned with this. Standards protect the priorities by making sure that you have boundaries set in place and everything. Actions are evidence, so that's just covers everything. And then feedback, that's only going to improve everything that we do, making sure that everything becomes easier for us in the future, and so on and so forth. So what I was trying to actually figure out from the get-go, I was like, what even is an identity? I wasn't even sure. I was like, there's got to be like a combination of things that make up an identity. From a psychological standpoint, apparently, this is the blend. So you've got experience, beliefs, values, self-perception, social influence, and behaviors. For myself personally, I'm not going to be going over all of this stuff in this video because I kind of have this self-awareness with all these topics. This is basically for our past self to identify who we are right now, right? I'm trying to go into the future a little bit more. So these things don't necessarily matter, but what I will say is if you can understand who you are right now, on a deeper level and actually go into all of these things, dig deep, be honest with yourself, you're gonna find a lot of things out about yourself, things that you don't like, things that you do like, things that you wanna keep, things that you wanna enhance or improve on. And that's gonna give you so much more clarity when it comes to actually building the next step, which is going to be the brand new identity. For example, just quickly, like for experience, this could be childhood stuff that you've attached to your identity. Could be traumas, could be wins, could be failures, could be even your environment, the sort of people that you hung around with, your household, your relationships with other people, you know. Beliefs, this could be anything. Like this could be your religion, beliefs in yourself, you know, I'm lazy, or I'm really productive, I dream big, or I'm gonna be successful, you know what I mean? So that's kind of beliefs. With values, these things could be, you know, freedom, family, finances, loyalty, creativity, all those different traits and stuff. So that's a good one to get over as well. For behaviors, this is more about like what sort of habits you have, what sort of routines, what sort of actions do you take on? Basically, the visible proof of what your identity is. Self-perception, massive one. This is kind of the story that you tell yourself, because this is really what it comes down to right now. That's all we are, is a projection of the story that we tell ourselves that we are, you know? So, massive one. The whole point of this system, actually, now that I think about it, is literally just rewriting the story and making sure that we actually put our actions in to back it up. So that one is actually a sleeper. So for example, it's like, I'm the person that follows through on things. I'm the person that's always on time. I'm the person that, you know, things like that. And then social influence could just be what sort of like the culture, the friends, the family, things of that nature, who you're surrounding yourself with on a day-to-day basis. So that all of these little elements here kind of build an identity. But we're not going to go too deep on that. That's just a quick little rundown. Let's actually focus on how we're going to put in a functional identity, because that's the cool stuff. So basically, this is the psychological identity. This is the person that makes up who we are right now. So understanding this is going to be really important and make the whole process easier for when we create our functional identity, which is going to be the brand new identity, the person that we actually want to attain now and stuff like that. So now we're up to creating the new identity. Now, this is the most important part of the process. The more depth, the more data you have of how much clarity of the sort of person you want to be, the better. You can go into all the specifics of like, you know, how do I want to look? How do I want to feel? What sort of habits I want to be doing? That's cool. And I think it's important to actually help you like visualize the sort of person that you really want to be, but it's not the priority. The priority is actually, how do I think? Because once you figure out how you think and how you perceive certain things, those outcomes will trickle down anyway. So that's just something to keep in mind. I actually used a cheat sheet to help me get this clarity as best as I could. I just couldn't think of the best questions to actually ask myself. So I used ChatGPT. And I said, ask me a list of questions that are going to help me gain crystal clear clarity of the new desired identity that I want to attain. So I used that and it asked me some really cool questions. I'm going to write the questions down and I'll actually share like a screen share of my Mac to show the conversation of the in-depth answers that I had to give it. Just to give you guys like a bit of example on how deep I'm actually going with the answers and making sure that everything's kind of thought through. Because again, the more certainty you have of this new identity, the more likely you're going to actually adopt it, and it's going to be deeply rooted inside of you. So, because when I was thinking about it, I was like, the more clarity that I have of the person that I'm going to be from now on, the better all of my decision making is going to be in the future, because I've almost got a funnel of a belief system. I have like all these components now laid out in front of me. So when I'm making a decision from here on out in the future, it goes through this filtering system that I've already created that I know is going to be be trustworthy. It's similar to like if you have a CEO in a company, he's already got his systems in place where he's got like, you got to talk with admin, and then maybe you have to go through the manager, and then if the manager's sweet with it, then we can go through to like the CEO. And then once we go through the CEO, maybe you go to the owner and the big boss, you know what I mean? So that's kind of like, we're kind of creating our own way of that. We're kind of creating our own version of that through having the systems, the priorities, the standards, the actions, and the feedback. So hopefully that kind of helps with understanding it a little bit better. Anyway, I'll write down all these questions and we'll go through them one by one. Quick mention as well, I've got 18 questions that I ask myself. More the merrier. If you have questions that you can think of outside the box that are going to help you gain even more clarity, if you want to go on ChatGPT and like, you know, look up, say, ask me 50 questions. Unreal. I've got 18 though, at least for now. Like I said, this isn't meant to be perfect. Well, it's not going to be perfect. I'm sure that there's going to be, you know, in the very near future, I'm going to be asking more questions and being like, okay, I've got answers for these elements in my life, but now that I'm kind of reaching this, I've got more questions or new questions that I need to answer. These questions are sectioned in 7 different sections. So I'll go over each section like this. For now, I'm just going to read out the questions and then I'll have my answers actually included between each, like as a screenshot above or covering my face or whatever, between each of these sections. So, section 1, standards, how I operate daily. Question 1, when your higher self has a task scheduled, what happens? Question 2, what does your higher self do when he doesn't feel like it? Question 3, what does your higher self never tolerate from himself anymore? And question 4, what are 3 non-negotiables your higher self hits every single week? Now, section 2, priorities. What actually matters? Question 5, if everything in your life was stripped away, what 3 things would you build first? Question 6, what would your higher self willingly sacrifice time, comfort, and energy for? Question 7, what currently gets in the way of your priorities? Next is section 3, discipline and execution. Question 8, what does a perfect day look like? Question 9, how many hours per day does your higher self actually produce meaningful work? Question 10, what does your higher self do at the exact moment he notices himself slipping? Section 4, self-image, how I see myself. Question 11, how does your higher self describe himself in 1 sentence? Question 12, what traits are obvious to other people when they interact with him? Question 13, what kind of reputation does he build over time? Section 5, emotional control and mindset. Question 14, how does your higher self respond to stress, uncertainty, or setbacks? Question 15, what emotions does he no longer let control his actions? Section 6, expression. I think this one is a little bit more tailored to me personally. I think if you had a different value, this would be a little bit more relevant, but I'll obviously share it with you guys anyway. Question 16, how consistently does your higher self express himself? Question 17, what would feel out of character for him not to do? Now, last but definitely not least, section 7, truth check, the reality. So question 18, where are you currently out of alignment with this version of yourself? This one is, it kind of all runs back, right, to why I said it was so important to kind of do that psychological identity work at the start, because then you actually have the contrast between who you are right now and who you want to be. So those are my 18 questions. I'm sure that there's going to be plenty more later down the line, but for now, that's what we're going to run with. And I think it's got a clear enough idea now. And I think it brings enough clarity for now, at least, to make those actionable steps towards guiding the rest of our system. So we've just climbed over the biggest hurdle that this process has, and probably one of the biggest hurdles to face in general in life. We've come to recognize that we've been tolerating certain aspects of ourselves that maybe we haven't actually faced in the past. We've recognized that we don't want to tolerate certain things anymore about ourselves. We've sat down and actually made a conscious decision on what sort of direction we want to pursue within our lives for the future, and actually considered what the version of ourselves is going to have to think. We're now ready to leap over to the next section of this system, which is from identity over to priorities. Now, priorities is a lot shorter of a segment. Basically, all we're trying to figure out is what our 3 priorities are in life that are aligned with this identity. For me personally, everything else below that is secondary. 3 is plenty of priorities to go around, because if you have too many priorities, you don't have any. You know what I mean? Like you could be a father and your number 1 priority is family. Second might be health. Third might be financial, or, anything. For me personally, I've got number 1, creation, also known as purpose, which is going to be filming, tattooing, short form content, just creating in general. That's what I want to do. That's my number 1 priority. This list is in order as well. Second, health. Reason I picked health is because this is going to support everything that I do. It's going to allow me to leverage the best results within myself out of everything, whether that's all things in life, having a clearer mind, feeling overall better, being more effective with everything that I'm doing. And it also allows me to sustain all of this work with my purpose. Third one, income. Why income? Because it simply supports the other 2. Without having a little bit of income, I literally can't run these things. So that all goes hand in hand. Technically, they are a trilogy, Creation supports income, income supports paying for good health, eating good, eating healthy, and so on and so forth. It keeps the ball rolling, you know what I mean? But if I was to push where I spend most of my time and stuff, it would be creation, health, and then income. Income not being the biggest priority. And then it's obviously important to understand that everything else is then secondary from that. Now, it sounds a little bit cold at first. You're like, oh, what? Your family isn't even in your priority list. Well, everything I'm doing here is actually benefiting my family, because when you have direct care about yourself, that projects out onto your family. If I'm making good income, I'm supporting my family. If I'm healthy and present within life, that supports my family as well. If I'm pursuing my purpose, I'm being honest with myself, which means I'm going to rub that off onto other people that I'm surrounded with my friends and family as well. So that's why you can't pour from an empty cup. That's the saying, If you're worrying about prioritizing yourself and making sure that you're looking after yourself at all times, it's not a direct it's not a direct help, but it's an indirect help to every encounter that you ever have outside of your own life. So that's how I see it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's just, for me right now, especially, like, I'm 24, I'm young, I don't have a partner or a family. So this stuff right here is what's relevant to my chapter in life. So that's basically priorities. Moving on to the next part. Now, we're up to standards. This one's really powerful, I think. This is going to make sure that everything happens. This is the next layer to make sure that the actions stay within the criteria that our new identity has adopted. So I'm going to break this up into 3 roles that this section plays, because I think it's really important and it makes everything a lot easier to understand. So the first of 3 points or 3 roles that this section plays is the enforcer. So as an enforcer, this is going to remove negotiation, stop the whole, oh, I'll just do it later, and it actually forces execution. So that's the first point. Second section, the protector role. So this is going to protect your time / structure. It's going to also protect your energy and focus. Just to give you an example of like what sort of scenarios I mean by this, it's like, let's say for example, like for me, my mornings are when my best work comes out. I'm the most creative, I'm fresh, I feel good. So I like to really favor that time to focus on the work that I need to get done most efficiently, most effectively. It's the best time that I can leverage. So no phone in that time, no distractions in that time. Let everyone in your environment know that, okay, listen, like I'm going to be in the study, I'm going to be doing my thing. Please let me be. Whatever help you guys need later in the day, I'm more than happy to help. So yeah, examples, no phone in focus blocks, and protect mornings. On to the third. And then finally, we have accountability. So this is obviously going to hold you to your identity. Firstly, it's going to keep you aligned with it, making sure that you're not, slacking off. It's going to make your routine a little bit more rigid, or your system a little bit more rigid as well. Like knowing if you have a clear pass or fail, which as a follow-up of that will remove excuses, which of course is what accountability is in the first place. So that's the roles. So it's kind of like a self-policing system. As you can see here, it's a little bit like a shield. It's here to protect you. It's not here to, make you a slave to yourself. It's just here to actually make sure that you are, in fact, keeping aligned as a whole to the potential that you can reach. So just a real quick summary on all of this. Basically, what it's doing is firstly removing emotion from the execution, all right? And it's shifting our perspective. It's changing that story that we constantly tell ourselves where it's like, oh, I'll just do it later, or I just really don't feel like it. I'll just do it this once and then I'll change it up. It cuts out that wiggle room and that rationalization of having excuses by, changing and shifting that perspective to just being like, no, that's just not what I do anymore. That's just not what I do. I don't do that because my higher self doesn't do that, and that's who I am now. So that's just not something that I plan on doing, So it kind of cuts out that whole taxing of overthinking, doing the rationalization. It doesn't even give you a chance to rationalize, which actually saves you a lot of energy. Maybe not in the short term because it's going to be uncomfortable, but in the long term, the amount of energy that you're going to save overall, incredible. So that's one thing I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Now, actions. So as I've already discussed, actions are probably the most important, right? So because they cover everything. They cover the whole reason why we're even making this in the first place. So what I would recommend is kind of having a realistic expectation, or like even a little bit below your means, just for now, because consistency with sticking to this is more important than having like this crazy new upgrade of actions in place. The whole point is to just maintain that momentum and keep it compounding over time. Because once you can slowly increase it, it's like at the gym, I'm only adding an extra rep into my set each week and I'm building that up. But as I build that up, I'm constantly progressing at the gym. And then once I get up to like that certain margin, it's like a progressive overload. Once I get to that certain margin of my set where I reach the top of the reps range that I want to go at, I then up the weight, right? And then we go back up and then we go up in reps. So it's a similar way of going about it with this. I'm not trying to burn myself out within the first month, because then I'm going to lose that momentum. I'm going to feel disheartened and I'm not going to be able to sustain this identity that I'm trying to adopt in the first place. So it's just a quick reminder before we actually break this down into a similar way of how we explain the standards. So this has 3 components as well that have helped me gain clarity on what the purpose of having these actions and this step of the process is as well. So let's go over them. First section, structure. Creates structure. Points being, it paints an intentional picture for each day. It removes all that unnecessary decision making as well, like, oh, what should I do now? You know, it places priority into time as well, like what we've spoken about with priorities does that, which is a massive thing as well. It means that you know you're constantly aligned with the goals. Just to give you an example of my structure, mornings now, feeling the freshest in the day. So that time is going to be dedicated towards filming, planning, or creating the highest leverage points. Then through midday, I'll either have my work or gym, which is based on health and finances. And then once I do that, I'm usually a bit more gassed out, a bit more tired. So I spend that time on work that isn't going to necessarily take as much mental energy and strain, such as the tattooing and the editing. Second section, execution. So this is obviously where the standards get applied, right? As we already know, and where you actually do the work, which is quite explanatory as well. For an example, you know, showing up to the time block, just in general, knowing that, okay, this is the intentional time that I'm going to be spending. I'm not going to be able to get out of it, but I know in the long run that I'm going to be thanking myself for that. And starting even when you don't feel like it, which is going to only strengthen the discipline and the accountability, and also just develop the self-respect and evidence that we were speaking about with aligning our actions with identity to prove that we are the person that we actually want to be, which is amazing. Might have to rub this off to give ourselves a bit more space for the third point. And finally, then we have our last point, which I kind of sound like I am repeating myself here, but it does form consistency, which is repeatable daily behavior, momentum, which actually changes our life. Thought I'd also just give a quick reminder: identity, who I am; priorities, what matters; standards, what I follow; actions, how it actually happens daily. You can kind of see now how all of this kind of helps each other. And you can also kind of see how having the most clarity on the identity helps assist decision making on everything else. And that's going to happen over time. I think that muscle is just going to develop, where you're just naturally more intentional as a person with every action that you take in life, because you've constantly because you're fully now, like over time, you're fully adapted into this pattern of thinking, which is constantly intentional. So I just thought that'd be a good little thing to mention. And obviously, our previous mind before would just have random days, reactive behavior, and drifting decision making. But now, because our new identity has been formed and our behaviors are accumulated around that, we have our after, which is structured days towards who I become. And I'd say, if anyone's gonna pull the law of attraction card, thinking about it and all this, it will get you there. That was basically what I was trying to pull off in that last whiteboard thing. At the very start of this video, I had the whiteboard with all the points of who I wanted to be. That's kind of the law of attraction, whereas this is refined and actually specific with actionable steps that are going to actually get you there. So I don't know if you want to call this the law of attraction or not, but this is actually putting it into practice and doing something about it, instead of just fantasizing and being like, this is what I want, this is what I want. Because wanting is never going to get you where you need to go. Never. Trust me, I friggin' know. I'd be sitting there thinking about it all the time. Oh yeah, like, trust me, man, I want it more than anyone. I want it more than anyone. But the only thing that's ever going to get you there is the action. The world doesn't care about anything other than your actions. How quickly you are getting what you want, not thinking about what you want. It's not about how long and how much time you spent thinking about it, which is pretty obvious. But for some reason I thought, if I brainwash myself into thinking that I want it more than anyone, then eventually I'll get it. And it's bullshit. It's just bullshit. You got to do it. And that's what I'm trying to help with for myself and to share it with you guys if you want to take this sort of stuff on, because I think it might work. I think it's got a better chance at least than any of the other stuff I've been doing. A better chance of anything that everyone else is trying to do with this TikTok stuff. Anyway, let's quickly go over the feedback. As I said, I haven't actually done any feedback yet because I'm literally writing this out in real time, but I do have a bit of a concept on how I'm going to go about it, so I'll share that as well. Now for the final component of the system, which is feedback. In brackets, how I improve, which is the role of what this whole section is for. What I wrote here in the center is my little system. This is everything it stands for. Discipline creates freedom. This is the whole purpose of even creating this in the first place. It's for freedom. Discipline creates capability. Capability creates freedom. That's how I look at it. And I think it's really important to be able to be capable because, again, it's what I want. It's what a lot of people I know want. So that's why we're working towards chipping away at finding out how we can get it. So we have our plan, which is our intention, right? Which is literally what we're creating right now, our system, which is followed and supported with the action, which then creates our evidence for our identity, which then aligns the two. Then we have a look at, obviously, a plan is never going to go to plan in the real world. So we revise with reviewing it, which is in reality, see how we actually go about things. Obviously, it's ideal to have little timestamps so we get everything done in the one day, but it's not real. Then once we actually come to terms with, certain adjustments that weren't very much considered within the process of planning, we make adjustments and improve and actually make it according to our plan. Maybe there's certain things that get in the way and we can use communication to get us closer to our actual goal, or maybe something just pops up that we can't push out the way. So we got to make small adjustments within our system, things of that nature. And then once we adjust, we plan again and create our intention, our new and improved, refined plan. And then this kind of just spirals and spirals and spirals and refines until we get to the destination that we anticipate on getting to. And then this is just the circle of life, I guess. This is the circle of growth. It just never ends. It never ends. How would I actually go about planning, or how would I actually go about reviewing or making the adjustments? Well, I would, for me personally, I'll probably do weekly check-ins. Weekly check-ins in accordance to your priorities. Forgive the handwriting. Accordance to priorities. So for me, for example, I've got creation, health, and income. So you're obviously going to break this down. How did I go about, was I accountable? Maybe we could scale this in accountability, right? Maybe we could have a accountability chart, a discipline chart, an honest review, maybe a lesson box as well. I'll try and actually come up with something and implement it at the end of this video, because I think that would be a really good idea on just having a bit of a feedback loop. But overall, this is the week as well. So we plan, we do. This is literally going to be my channel. This is the formula to my channel, basically. I come in at the start of the week of every week with an intention from now on. I do it, I record it, I film it, I edit it. Then I let reality bite me, which is a part of the storytelling of the channel. I share that with you guys. Then I show you how I improve it. And then I find my next problem. And we just keep on cycling it. Anyways, let's go back. I'll get a feedback loop. And I want to talk about making an actual actionable system and routine as well. How I did it. So it's been about 2 to 3 weeks since I made the initial video inside of this video. And I'll tell you what, I haven't been perfecting the whole process or system as we speak. It's been difficult. It really has. It's been tweaking around, trying to finish making this video. I've been kind of being a little undisciplined with taking a step back. There's like this constant external pressure that I put on myself, thinking, you know, I've got to smash out this editing and just get it done instead of having a little bit of patience. But I really do like trying to get these videos out as quick as I can. So things like that, where like time blocks and stuff haven't really been followed. If I was to quickly summarize how the experience has been going so far, I would say that this system hasn't provided me with full productivity yet, but, because it's important to mention the but, it has brought me clarity when it comes to like decision making, knowing if I am in the right or wrong about situations, having that guidance with like certain decision making in the past, like over the weekends and stuff, just being more responsible overall because I'm like aligned with the future self that I want to become like. But in saying that, there's so much more to still go with this journey. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, you know, I got all the answers and it's figured out and I've fucking come up with like this masterpiece. Like I'm sure there's going to be flaws in this system. It's only been a few weeks and I'm sure that I'll probably make another update video in the near future as well. The main thing that I've actually been able to take from this is just having like a North Star to guide me. Like I know when I'm being wrong now. I know when I'm procrastinating. I know when I'm drifting because I know that I don't really have an excuse to be doing it. The answer's on these sheets of paper, which I will make a quick side note. I ended up making a bunch of these little sheets of paper so that if you guys have any interest in taking the action to find out more answers and clarity for yourself, all of these sheets are going to be in the description. So I hope that it helps out. I really do. I think it will. It helped me out. It's just now an accountability issue for me, actually making the actions happen. At the same time, again, I would definitely say that I'm making good progress. I'm working towards it, but I definitely by far haven't mastered it just yet. There was another digital tool that I ended up using as well. It's called Stripe. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. It's basically like a bit more of a long-formed goal-setting platform. I think it's just like a website. You make an account. I think it's like $70 AUD a year. So it's pretty good. It's like it's kind of aligned to the system that I created. So it's like a lifetime goal, 5-year goal, 1-year goal, monthly goals, and then weekly goals, etc. And it includes like a calendar where you can time block, you can repeat the system. So it's quite good. I mean, if you want to just go ahead and use like Google Calendar, that's a realistic option too, to be honest. I don't see too much of a difference, but it's just like a nice little headquarters that I like to check in on in the mornings and stuff, just to kind of keep me aligned with it and make sure that I'm sweet. These sheets have a routine sheet inside where you've got like an ideal week, I guess you could call it. But of course, you know, life gets in the way sometimes and you got to shuffle a few things around. That's why I thought Stripe is a nice little option. I'm not sponsored or anything like that. I'm just giving you guys game here. So yeah, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Again, just to conclude everything, this is not the end of the experiment. It's more like a starting point. Now that all the answers are there, it's just time to actually commit fully into it and trust the process and find out if it's all worth it. I appreciate you all. Laters.